the framework. The priority now is to avoid trade protectionism, which also establishing e-commerce platform and others. The new development bank is also pledging to provide more financial support. Li Jianhua has more.
The BRICS countries are seen as the new engine of the world economy. The bloc is providing a platform to align the 5 nations through business meetings as well as cultural communication. More importantly, it is promoting an open economy, while trade protectionism is rearing its head.
This year, a major consensus reached among business leaders is to urge governments to oppose trade protectionism. Another call is to boost infrastructure construction among BRICS countries and improve connectivity.
Apart from traditional economic communication, BRICS is eyeing e-commerce cooperation. And in order to make that happen, China's Commerce Ministry has promised to invite the other BRICS members to join in the first e-commerce training session by year-end.
Currently, the 5 BRICS nations are at different development stages and have different features in terms of e-commerce. To reach a consensus among the 5 countries, we're planning to set up an e-commerce workshop. This way, we can form a specific mechanism in this field.
The new development bank, also known as the BRICS Development Bank, that supports public or private projects through loans, guarantees and other financial instruments, has just approved a loan worth $1.4 billion to 4 of its member nations, and more is on the horizon. The bank is pledging to lend up to $2.5 billion by the end of this year. In order to improve the level of investment cooperation and secure transparency, China has enacted a document entitled Guidelines for BRICS Investment Facilitation.
The guidelines comprehensively summarize the existing good investment practices of the BRICS countries. They will help the BRICS nations to enhance the transparency of the investment policy framework, to create an open, transparent, and favorable investment environment, and provide strong impetus for inclusive growth and sustainable development.
BRICS countries represent over 40% of the world's population and boast a combined nominal GDP of nearly 22% of the gross world product. These are gigantic figures, but whether the group will shake up the world's economy depends on how well these 5 countries coordinate their differences and interests. Li Jianhua, CGTN.
And to talk about the summit, joining us in the studio, we have Professor John Gong from the University of International Business and Economics and Chair of the Himalayan Consensus, Mr. Lawrence Braun. Welcome to the show. Let me start with you, John.
Sure.
It has been 9 years since the BRIC mechanism was established. How do you think the 5 nations have been faring economically?
The cooperation between the 5 countries has been growing, for a long time, since the start, not just since the start of the BRICS bloc, but way before that. I am more familiar with the situation between China and the rest of the bloc countries. For example, the investment between Chinese investment in India has been growing very fast in the last few years. I just came back from a company actually in Hunan province called Sanic Heavy Equipment. It's one of the dominant heavy equipment companies in the world in construction equipment. They are doing very well. They are the largest player in that industry in India, so they are selling very well. They're also doing very well in other countries. So in China and India has been doing cooperation has been going on pretty well. Also I came back from a company in Hunan province as well, in the high-speed railway train building business. They are selling hundreds of trains in South Africa, for example. They're starting up a business there, to assemble these trains and maintenance job for these trains. So the business is doing very well. I know Chinese automobile companies are setting up investments in Brazil, doing very well in Brazil, Brazil automobile market. And also, between China and Russia, China is also investing in the pipeline business in Russia, the railroad business in Russia. So overall, I think it's a booming business among the broad countries.
But it seems China is the beneficiary of this economic relations. Do the other BRIC nations also benefit from the cooperation mechanism?
Well, China has been driving it, of course, but what you really have now is you have the re-emergence of the non-aligned nations. It's Bandung vision all over again, but this time it's with finance, business and pragmatism rather than ideology and global revolution. And it is an economic revolution in the sense that you really now have a new block of nations, the emergence of a parallel economic and financial system alongside the post-Bretton Woods system that was set up in World War II. And so with China's outbound investments, particularly with the BRI, the Belt and Road Initiative, which is in parallel with the emergence of the BRICS as a coalition and an alliance, you now have China's outbound investments going to Russia, to South Asia, and of course this is benefiting India, it's benefiting Russia, Africa is benefiting, and in turn you're building a global economy of synergy and minimizing the potential risk that we have in a very volatile
some of the
world.
BRIC nations have run into problems, especially those energy exporters like Russia, Brazil, and South Africa.
The quantitative easing policy of the Fed in the United States drove up commodity prices because a lot of the cheap money that was being printed went into speculation on commodity derivatives and of course currency speculation. And of course when tapering began at the end of the Obama administration, that basically created enormous currency and commodity volatility. And this is one of the reasons for the emergence of a new development bank under the BRICS. This began with the Chiang Mai Initiative in the financial crisis in 2008 when the nation sat back and said, look, the quantitative easing approach to being able to address the financial crisis is simply putting financial systems on, life preservers, it's not solving the root of the problem. And even in the Delhi Declaration of the BRICS Summit in India, they declare that this is irresponsible, and the need for new financial institutions and a new financial architecture to build stability in a world that is becoming increasingly volatile.
And you think the new development bank can serve that purpose?
It is definitely for this purpose, and this is the approach that they're taking.
Yes, John?
We have to go back to the very foundation of why BRICS is formed in the first place, right? I mean, who would have imagined that Jim O'Neill's initial ideas blossom into such a block of countries, cooperation among these countries? I mean, the basic tenet of this whole thing is that it's with respect to the rise of the rest, it's called. In other words, historically, countries' economy tend to converge over time. We had a great diversion in the 1600s, but now we're starting to the rise of the rest. These countries, being growing much faster than developed countries. Specifically above the 4% GDP growth rate. And these countries have their own agenda. Jointly, they're called the emerging market. They have their own agenda. They have their own policies. So the idea of forming this, this BRICS thing is to advocate the voices of the emerging markets and to have a better say in the global governance structure. And this is the very foundation of BRICS. We have to keep mindful of that, I think.
Well, these are the new kids on the block, and they are growing very fast. You're watching a special broadcast on CGTN on the BRICS Summit Business Forum. We'll be taking a short break and be back in a minute.
5 major emerging economies meet in China at a critical juncture. As globalization stands at a crossroads and trade liberalization hits the buffers. 10 years into the partnership, BRICS members are now seeking greater cooperation to navigate through the uncertainties. Consensus building in the making. What would this mean for the world economy and future global governance? Join us for a special coverage of the 9th BRICS Summit in Xiamen, only on CGTN.
Russian President Vladimir Putin's plane is set to arrive in Xiamen very soon. And now let's speak to our reporter Zoe, who is underground at the Xiamen Gaoqi International Airport. Good afternoon, Zoe. So we were told that President Putin will land in Xiamen very soon. He's obviously a frequent visitor to China. What kind of welcome will he expect?
Well, hello there, Zoe. We are now expecting the arrival of Russian President Vladimir Putin, and his plane is set to arrive at Xiamen International Airport in the next 2 hours or so. That's where actually I'm standing right now, and the plane is going to land in the areas behind me. However, since now it is a typhoon season and it's raining a little bit here with a bit stronger winds, so it's possible that the weather may delay his arrival a little bit, but we're not fully certain about that. And when he does land, Putin is scheduled to meet with Chinese President Xi Jinping, and this will be the fourth bilateral meeting between the two leaders this year. And we're also expecting a discussion covering a wide range of issues, and of course at the top agenda will be the world economy and trade, and also how to better coordinate and cooperate under the Belt and Road Initiative. And this is also President Putin's second visit to China this year. He was here in May for the Belt and Road Forum and now for the BRICS Summit. And experts say that President Putin's attendance in the two most important diplomatic events of this year in China shows the strong ties between the two nations. Back to the studio, Zoe.
And obviously, Russia is a strong supporter of BRICS. The first summit took place in Moscow. Can you tell us how BRIC framework can benefit Russia, and what are Russia's agenda at the summit?
Well, sure. We know that Russia is one of the original members of the BRIC, and he has always believed in what we call the constructive cooperation. Here, let me give you an example. For instance, the Fuyao glass is a world-leading manufacturing of the auto glass, and it's based in China. The company set up its very first overseas manufacturing branch in Russia in 2011 with an investment of over $200 million, and now the operation of that factory is humming along, creating thousands of jobs in the process. And this is just one Chinese company, and many other enterprises have now followed a similar path, starting from investing in the BRICS nations and then expanding to the developed nations as their global expansion strategy. Well, so President Putin also wrote a commentary this week in which he praised China's significant contribution to the BRICS as its current president. He also said that Russia wants closer coordination of the BRICS countries' foreign policies, and Putin called for agreements in the global information security. And he also proposed that the 5 countries should come together to draft and adopt universal rules of this responsible behavior in the sphere. Back to the studio, Zoe.
All right, thank you so much, Zoe, for your reporting from the airport in Xiamen. And a groundbreaking ceremony was held on Saturday to mark the start of the construction for the new development bank headquarters in Shanghai. But Chinese Finance Minister Xiao Jie and NDB President Kundapur Varman Kamath delivered opening remarks just before the start of the ceremony. Well, the project is expected to be completed by September 2021. And NDB is a multilateral development bank established by the 5 BRIC nations. The idea was initially proposed by India at the 4th BRIC Summit in 2012 in Delhi. Well, it began operations in 2015. Kamath, the bank's president, said the lender aims to make about $4 billion in loans next year and will soon start lending to private sector's projects. Well, the BRIC nations are helping one another on infrastructure projects, obviously thanks to the bank, while the new development bank that was created by the BRIC nations has approved $1.4 billion in loans for 4 projects in China, India, and Russia. Well, China gets 2 of the loans. About $300 million was approved to enhance flood control in the Xiang River watershed in Hunan province in central China. Another $200 million will go to promoting energy conservation in Jiangxi in the south. Well, Russia gets $460 million loan to implement information technology systems in its own judicial system. And in India, $470 million will go to Madhya Pradesh multi-village rural drinking water supply scheme project. The new development bank's president says the 4 projects are in line with the institution's mandate of mobilizing resources for infrastructure and sustainable development in BRIC nations. And its establishment of the new development bank has been one of the most important milestones for BRICS alliance. South African power utility Eskom, for one, has received $180 million for renewable energy project before. Sumitra Nadu has this report.
The BRICS Development Bank issued its first round of funding in 2016. $1.5 billion worth of loans were made available for renewable projects in the BRICS countries. South Africa received $180 million. Most of the money is being used to develop transmission lines to transport renewable power to the national grid.
South Africa embarked on an ambitious and very successful IPP program for renewable energy. And these IPPs were selected as a result of their low bids, and contracts were signed, so-called PPAs, power purchase agreements were signed to supply the renewable energy into the grid to Eskom.
90% of South Africa's power production is generated from coal. The government wants to reduce this. It has plans in place for an energy mix that will include cleaner sources of power. Eskom has already started consuming power from its renewable sources.
The bulk of our renewable energy projects are happening in 3 provinces, primarily in the Northern Cape, which is where you have a lot of solar projects. But in terms of wind, we have the Western and the Eastern Cape. But the bulk of the renewable energy projects that we have in South Africa so far, the majority of them are in the Northern Cape.
Eskom received funding from the BRICS Development Bank on condition that it used it for renewable energy projects. It is now using the money to build transmission lines in order to transport 670 megawatts of power from these projects to the national grid. Once complete, Eskom expects to reduce carbon emissions by 1.3 million tons.
When you try and build too many plants in one area, you get what is known as grid congestion. The problem that has been experienced is delays due to grid access, and costs that are being incurred by Eskom in order to upgrade the grid.
The Independent Power Producers Program has been successful in helping to stabilize the grid and ensure a secure power supply. It has created more than 27,000 jobs and power prices have declined, but the program has been put on hold.
The plan was to connect as many of these renewable energy projects as possible so that we can deal with the issues around load shedding. But now that we have a stable power supply from Eskom's own fleet of power stations, and also the contribution that we are getting from renewable energy projects, the government now wants to decide in terms of the pace and the scale of signing on these projects.
Renewable energy contributes around 4.5% to the country's total energy generation. The IPP program has seen more than $15 billion in investment, mostly from foreign entities. The government's new integrated resource plan on energy is expected next year. Sumitra Nadu, CGTN, Johannesburg, South Africa.
And the new development bank obviously is expected to offer loans totaling $2.5 billion this year. That is a big jump from last year's $1.5 billion spent on 7 programs altogether. And now let's turn to our studio guest for some talks on the new development bank. John, the new development bank has seen some progress, has been providing loans to some projects, most of them infrastructure and energy projects. What do you make of their progress? Have they filled the needs for those BRIC nations?
I am very impressed with the speed they have come to on board. This bank was set up to specifically invest in emerging markets, which may not be the primary focus for the other World Bank, for example. So far they have made 2 years of loans in the billions of dollars. So being pretty fast in catching up these efforts. Another thing to notice is that their investment focus is primarily, I think, on sustainable energy, sustainable development areas. So that bodes very well for these countries. And also the amount of money they invest is also quite large, in my opinion. Considering the fact that the bank has only been in operation for less than 2 years. As a matter of fact, I was actually the co-author of the policy document for the BRICS New Development Bank 3 years ago.
Yeah.
So
this is. You must be pretty proud of it.
I'm very proud. At that time there was a steering committee to write policy papers, but now they're really in business now. They're actually making investments. So I'm very impressed with that.
And the Business Forum seems to have already started. President Xi Jinping is showing up. He is about to give a keynote speech at the opening of the Business Forum, and also kickstart the BRICS Summit season this year in Xiamen. It was followed by South African President Jacob Zuma. This is an opportunity for business people to be exact. 630 businesses from 25 countries showed up.
Now, Mr. Jiang Zengwei, Chairman of CCPIT, will host the opening ceremony.
Your Excellency President Xi Jinping, Your Excellency President Michel Temer, Your Excellency President Jacob Zuma, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. Today, we are gathered here for the 2017 BRICS Business Forum. We are honored to have with us President Xi Jinping of the People's Republic of China, President Michel Temer of Brazil, and President Jacob Zuma of South Africa at the opening of the forum. Today and tomorrow, representatives from BRICS countries and other countries and international organizations, over 1,200 of them, will engage in discussions on trade and investment, connectivity, financial cooperation and development, and blue economy, the four items on the agenda, and explore ways to deepen economic and trade links of BRICS countries and boost global growth. On behalf of the organizing committee and the CCPIT, I extend our appreciation to President Xi Jinping, President Temer, and President Zuma for their presence at the opening ceremony. I also extend a very warm welcome to all of you for your participation. Now, with warm applause, let's invite His Excellency President Xi Jinping to deliver the keynote speech. Your Excellency President Michel Temer, Your Excellency President Jacob Zuma, distinguished guests, representatives of the business community, ladies and gentlemen, dear friends, good afternoon. It is my great pleasure to have all of you with us in the beautiful city of Xiamen, renowned as the Egret Island. It used to be the habitat of a lot of egret, hence the name Egret Island. The bird egret is the city bird of Xiamen. The BRICS summit will be held tomorrow. On behalf of the Chinese government and people, and also the people of Xiamen City, and in my own name, I warmly welcome all of you to the city of Xiamen and to the Business Forum. Let me say a few words about the city, our host city. Xiamen has been a trading port since ancient times, as well as a gateway of China's opening up and external cooperation. Embracing the vast ocean, the city has hosted visitors from around the world. On a personal note, when I came to Fujian province to take up a new post in 1985, I spent about 10 years in this province. Xiamen is where I started off. At that time, Xiamen was one of the 4 special economic zones in China. Back then, Xiamen was at the forefront of China's reform and opening up endeavor as one of the earliest special economic zones. The other 3 were in Guangdong province, Shenzhen, Zhuhai, and Shantou cities, and Xiamen is one of the four. At that time, it was a heartland of development. 3 decades later, Xiamen today has been transformed and has taken on a new look. It is well known for its innovation and entrepreneurship. As I understand, the share of new economy takes over 60% of the economy, as was told by the mayor and provincial leaders. And there were robust trade and investment and easy access to the world with air, land, and sea links. Xiamen Airline is performing very well. Well, today, it is also a beautiful garden city with a perfect harmony between man and nature. Xiamen is in the southern part of Fujian. The dialect here is very unique. I spent a lot of years here. I can understand some, but I don't speak a word. There is a popular saying here in southern Fujian: dedicate yourself and you will win. This embodies an enterprising spirit. Xiamen's success is a good example demonstrating the perseverance of the 1.3 billion plus Chinese people. In close to 40 years of reform and opening up, for next year we will celebrate the 40th anniversary. Under the leadership of the Communist Party of China, we Chinese have forged ahead, fearless and determined. And we have successfully embarked on a path of socialism with distinctive Chinese features. We have encountered difficulties and we have encountered challenges on the way forward. But we have persevered and we have kept pace with the times. With dedication, courage, and ingenuity, we are making great progress in pursuing development in today's China. Ladies and gentlemen, dear friends, BRICS cooperation has now reached a crucial stage of development. In assessing BRICS cooperation's performance, it is important to bear 2 things in mind. One is the historical course of global development and evolving international landscape. And the other is the historical process of development of BRICS countries, both individually and collectively, in the context of which BRICS cooperation is pursued. We are in a great era of development, transformation, and adjustment. Although conflict and poverty are yet to be eliminated globally, the trend toward peace and development has grown ever stronger. Our world today is becoming increasingly multipolar. The economy has become globalized. There is growing cultural diversity, and the society has become digitized. The law of the jungle, where the strong prey on the weak, and the zero-sum game are rejected. And peace, development, and win-win cooperation have become the shared aspiration of all peoples. Against such a backdrop, a large number of emerging market and developing countries have come to the fore, playing an ever greater role in international affairs. BRICS cooperation is a natural choice made by our 5 countries, as we all share a desire for peace and development. In the past decade, we, the BRICS countries, have surged ahead and become a bright spot in the global economy. The past decade has seen BRICS countries making headway in pursuing common development. The sudden outbreak of the 2008 global financial crisis left the world economy reeling, which is yet to fully recover. Facing the external shock, our 5 countries have held the ground by strengthening the domestic economy, boosting growth, and improving people's livelihood. In the past 10 years, our combined GDP has grown by 179%, trade by 94%, and urban population by 28%. All this has contributed significantly to stabilizing the global economy and returning it to growth, and it has delivered tangible benefits to 3 billion and more people. The past decade has seen BRICS countries advancing results-oriented and mutually beneficial cooperation. Leveraging our respective strengths and converging interests, we have put in place a leaders-driven cooperation framework that covers wide-ranging areas and multiple levels. A number of cooperation projects have been launched that are in keeping with our 5 countries' development strategies and meet the interests of our peoples. In particular, the new development bank and the contingent reserve arrangement have provided financing support for infrastructure building and sustainable development of BRICS countries, contributing to enhanced global economic governance and the building of an international financial safety net. The past decade has seen BRICS countries endeavoring to fulfill their international responsibility. Committed to multilateralism, fairness, and justice, our 5 countries have staked out our positions on major international and regional issues and made our proposals to address them. We have promoted reform of global economic governance to increase the representation and say of emerging market and developing countries. As a champion of development, we have taken the lead in implementing the Millennium Development Goals and Sustainable Development Goals, and we have engaged in close dialogue and cooperation with other developing countries to pursue development through unity. As an old saying goes, the construction of a tall building starts with its foundation. We have laid the foundation, and we have put in place the framework for BRICS cooperation. In reviewing the past progress of BRICS cooperation, I believe there are 3 important practices that should be carried forward. First, treating each other as equals and seeking common ground while shelving differences. In terms of BRICS cooperation, decisions are made through consultation among us all, not by one country alone. We respect each other's path and model of development, accommodate each other's concerns, and work to enhance strategic communication and political mutual trust. Given differences in national conditions, history, and culture, it is only natural that we may have some differences in pursuing our cooperation. However, with strong faith in cooperation and commitment to enhancing trust, we can achieve steady progress in our cooperation. Second, taking a results-oriented, innovative approach to make our cooperation benefit all. BRICS country cooperation is not a talking shop, but a task force that gets things done. Our goal is to build a big market of trade and investment, promote smooth flow of currency and finance, improve connectivity of infrastructure, and build close bond between the people. In pursuing this goal, our 5 countries are engaged in practical cooperation across the board, covering several dozen areas, including economy, trade, finance, science, technology, education, culture, and health, thus giving concrete expression to the endeavor of building a new type of international relations featuring win-win cooperation. Third, developing ourselves to help others with the well-being of the world in our mind. Having gone through an arduous course of development, we BRICS countries share the agony of those people who are still caught in chaos and poverty. Since the very beginning, our 5 countries have been guided by the principle of dialogue without confrontation, partnership without alliance. We are committed to observing the purposes and principles of the UN Charter, international law, and basic norms governing international relations in conducting state-to-state relations. When developing ourselves, we are ready to share development opportunities with other countries. The philosophy of BRICS cooperation has gained growing appreciation and endorsement, and has become a positive energy in the international community. All this is what the BRICS spirit is about. It is the shared value that has bound us in the past decades' cooperation. This spirit, constantly enriched over the years, has not only benefited our peoples, but also enabled us to make a difference in the world. Ladies and gentlemen, dear friends, reviewing past progress helps us forge ahead in the right direction. Currently, the global economy has resumed growth, with emerging market and developing countries delivering a strong performance. A new round of technological and industrial revolution is in the making, and reform and innovation are gaining momentum. We have enough reason to believe that our world will be a better place. On the other hand, more than 700 million people are still living in hunger. Tens of millions of people are displaced and become refugees. So many people, including innocent children, are killed in conflicts. The global economy is still not healthy enough and remains in a period of adjustment featuring weak growth. And new growth drivers are yet to emerge. Economic globalization is facing more uncertainties. Emerging market and developing countries find themselves in a more complex external environment. The long road to global peace and development will not be a smooth one. Some people, seeing that emerging market and developing countries have experienced growth setbacks, assert that BRICS countries are losing their luster. Well, it is true that affected by complex internal and external environments, weak BRICS countries have encountered headwinds of varying intensity. But the growth potential and trend of our countries remain unchanged, and we are fully confident about it. It is time to set sail when the tide rises. Going forward, we BRICS countries have a major task to accomplish, which is growing our economies and strengthening cooperation. We should build on past success, chart the course for future cooperation, and embark on a new journey to jointly usher in the second golden decade of BRICS cooperation. I want to share with you several observations. First, we should boost BRICS cooperation to create new impetus for economic growth of our 5 countries. In recent years, thanks to our strengths in terms of commodity supply, cost of human resources, and international market demand, our 5 countries have driven economic global growth. As our 5 countries continue to grow, however, issues concerning resources allocation and industrial structure have become more acute. At the same time, the global economic structure is going through profound changes, evidenced by shrinking global demand and rising financial risks. All this has posed challenges to the traditional strengths of BRICS economies. I would put it that it is taking us to a crucial stage where we must work harder to overcome difficulties. How should we get through this stage? Growth rate alone is not the answer. Instead, we should, on the basis of our current conditions and bearing in mind the long-term goal, advance structural reform and explore new growth drivers and development paths. We should seize the opportunity presented by the new industrial revolution to promote growth and change growth model through innovation. We should pursue innovation-driven development created by smart manufacturing, the Internet Plus model, digital economy, and sharing economy. We should stay ahead of the curve and move faster to replace old growth drivers with new ones. We should eliminate impediments to economic development through reform, remove systemic and institutional barriers, and energize the market and the society so as to achieve better quality, more resilient, and sustainable growth.
Despite different national conditions, we BRICS countries are at a similar development stage and share the same development goals. We should jointly explore ways to boost innovation-driven growth. This requires us to improve macroeconomic policy coordination, synergize our respective development strategies, leverage our strength in terms of industrial structure and resources endowment, and create value chains and a big market for shared interests so as to achieve interconnected development. Basing ourselves on our own practices of reform and innovation, we should blaze a new path which may also help other emerging market and developing countries to seize opportunities and meet challenges. Economic cooperation is the foundation of the BRICS mechanism. With this focus in mind, we should implement the strategy for BRICS economic partnership, institutionalize and substantiate cooperation in various sectors, and continue to enhance the performance of BRICS cooperation. This year, we have made progress in the operation of the new development bank and contingent reserve arrangement, and also in e-commerce, trade and investment facilitation, trading services, local currency bond issuance, scientific and technological innovation, industrial cooperation, and public-private partnership. Thus expanding and intensifying economic cooperation. We should continue to implement agreements and consensus already reached, and better leverage the role of current mechanisms. We should also actively explore new ways and new areas of practical cooperation and strengthen our ties in order to ensure durable and fruitful BRICS cooperation. Second, we BRICS countries should shoulder our responsibilities to uphold global peace and stability. Peace and development underpin and reinforce each other. People around the world want peace and cooperation, not conflict or confrontation. Thanks to the joint efforts of all countries, global peace has reigned for more than half a century. However, incessant conflicts in some parts of the world and hotspot issues are posing challenges to world peace. The intertwined threats of terrorism and the lack of cybersecurity, among others, have cast a dark shadow over the world. We BRICS countries are committed to upholding global peace and contributing to the international security order. This year, we have held the meeting of High Representatives for Security Affairs and also the meeting of foreign ministers. We have put in place a regular meeting mechanism for our permanent representatives to multilateral institutions and convened the foreign policy planning dialogue, the meeting of counterterrorism working group, the meeting of cybersecurity working group, and the consultation on peacekeeping operations. These efforts aim to strengthen consultation and coordination on major international and regional issues, and also build synergy among BRICS countries. We should uphold the purposes and principles of the UN Charter and the basic norms governing international relations, firmly support multilateralism, work for greater democracy in international relations, and oppose hegemonism and power politics. We should foster the vision of common, comprehensive, cooperative, and sustainable security, and take a constructive part in the process of resolving geopolitical hotspot issues and make our due contributions. I am convinced that as long as we take a holistic approach to fighting terrorism in all its forms and address both its symptoms and root causes, terrorists will have no place to hide. When dialogue, consultation, and negotiation are conducted to create conditions for achieving political settlement of issues such as Syria, Libya, and the Palestine-Israel conflict, the flame of war can be put out, and displaced refugees will eventually return to their homes. Third, we BRICS countries should contribute to enhancing global economic governance. Only openness delivers progress, and only inclusiveness sustains such progress. Due to sluggish global growth in recent years, such issues as uneven development, inadequate governance, and the deficit of fairness have become more acute. And protectionism and inward-looking mentality are on the rise. The global economy and the global economic governance system, having entered a period of adjustment, face new challenges. We should not ignore problems arising from economic globalization or just complain about them. Rather, we should make joint efforts to find solutions. We should work together with the other members of the international community to step up dialogue, coordination, and cooperation, and contribute to upholding and securing global economic stability and growth. To this end, we should promote the building of a noble global economy, advance trade and investment liberalization and facilitation, jointly build new global value chains, and rebalance economic globalization. Doing so will bring benefits to people across the world. We 5 countries should open more to each other and expand convergent interests in this process. We should take an inclusive approach and share opportunities together so as to create even brighter prospects for growing the economies of the 5 countries. The development of emerging market and developing countries is not intended to move the cheese of anyone, but to make the pie of the global economy bigger. We should join hands to steer the course of economic globalization, offer more vision and public goods, make the governance model and the rules more balanced and inclusive, and improve and reshape international division of labor and the global value chains. We should work to reform the global economic governance system to make it commensurate with the reality of the global economic architecture. We should also improve governance rules for the new domains of deep sea, polar regions, outer space, and cyberspace, so as to ensure that all countries share both rights and responsibilities. Fourth, we should increase the influence of BRICS and build extensive partnerships. As a cooperation platform with global influence, BRICS cooperation is more than about our 5 countries. Rather, it carries the expectations of emerging market and developing countries, and indeed the entire international community. Guided by the principle of open and inclusive cooperation, we BRICS countries place high premium on cooperation with other emerging market and developing countries, and we have established effective dialogue mechanisms with them. As a Chinese saying goes, it is easy to break one arrow, but hard to break 10 arrows bundled together. We should leverage our respective strength and influence, promote South-South cooperation and North-South dialogue, pool the collective strength of all countries and jointly diffuse risks and meet challenges. We should expand the coverage of BRICS cooperation and deliver its benefits to more people. We should promote the BRICS Plus cooperation approach and build an open and a diversified network of development partnerships to get more emerging market and developing countries involved in our concerted endeavors for cooperation and mutual benefits. During the Xiamen summit, China will hold the dialogue of emerging market and developing countries, where leaders of 5 countries from different regions will be invited to join the BRICS leaders in discussing global development cooperation and South-South cooperation, as well as the implementation of the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. Mutual understanding and friendship among peoples is crucial to enhancing BRICS cooperation and building extensive partnerships. We should fully leverage the role of people-to-people and cultural exchanges and encourage extensive public participation in BRICS cooperation. We should hold more events like movie festivals, cultural festivals, and sports games that are popular among the people, so that the BRICS story will be told everywhere, and the exchanges and friendship of the peoples of our 5 countries will become an inexhaustible source of strength, driving BRICS cooperation. Ladies and gentlemen, dear friends, the past decade has not only seen solid progress in the BRICS cooperation mechanism, it has also witnessed the unfolding of all-round reform and opening up in China, and its rapid economic and social development. Over these 10 years, China's economic aggregate has grown by 239%, and its total volume of exports and imports in goods risen by 73%. China has become the world's 2nd largest economy. The lives of its 1.3 billion plus people have been significantly improved, and China has made increasingly greater contribution to both regional and global economic development. It is true that as China's reform endeavors have entered a crucial stage, where tough challenges must be met, some underlying difficulties and problems have surfaced. They must be addressed with resolve and determination. As an old Chinese saying goes, effective medicine tastes bitter. The medicine that we have prescribed for ourselves is to carry out all-round reform. Over the past 5 years, we have adopted over 1,500 reform measures, uncovering all sectors, with breakthroughs made in multiple areas, and the reform is being pursued with greater intensity. The pace of economic structural adjustment and industrial upgrading has accelerated. China's economy has maintained a steady and sound performance, and new drivers sustaining development have grown in strength. In the first half of this year, China's economy grew by 6.9%. The value added from services accounted for 54.1% of the GDP. And 7.35 million urban jobs were created. All these achievements have proven that deepening all-round reform is the right path that we should continue to follow. Going forward, China will continue to put into practice the vision of innovative, coordinated, green, open, and inclusive development. We will adapt to and steer the new normal of economic development, push forward supply-side structural reform, accelerate the building of a new system for an open economy, drive economic development with innovation, and achieve sustainable development. China will stay firmly committed to peaceful development and make even greater contribution to global peace and development. Last May, China successfully hosted the Belt and Road Forum for International Cooperation, which was attended by 29 heads of state or government and also over 1,600 representatives from more than 140 countries and 80+ international organizations. This ushered in a new stage of translating the Belt and Road Initiative from vision to action and from planning to implementation. Foreign participants discussed the ways of promoting cooperation and development and reached broad consensus. Let me make this clear. The Belt and Road Initiative is not a tool to advance any geopolitical agenda, but a platform for practical cooperation. It is not a foreign aid scheme, but an initiative for interconnected development which calls for extensive consultation, joint contribution, and shared benefits. I am convinced that the Belt and Road Initiative will serve as a new platform for all countries to achieve win-win cooperation, and that it will create new opportunities for implementing the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. The business community of BRICS countries is the main force driving our economic development. Over the last decade, you have incorporated your business development into BRICS cooperation, thus making important contribution to forging BRICS economic partnerships. The reason why we are holding the Business Forum on the eve of the summit is to solicit your views and advice, so that we can work together to make the Xiamen summit a success and enable BRICS cooperation to deliver. I hope you will leverage your strength in terms of information, technology, and funding to launch more practical and mutually beneficial cooperation projects that benefit our countries and peoples. What you do will help spur economic and social development and improve people's lives. The Chinese government will continue to encourage Chinese companies to operate and take root in other countries. And likewise, we also warmly welcome foreign companies to invest and operate in China. Ladies and gentlemen, dear friends, We BRICS countries will enter a second decade of more vibrant growth. Let us work together with other members of the international community. Let our cooperation deliver more benefits to the peoples of our 5 countries. Let the benefits of global peace and development reach all the people in the world. In conclusion, I wish the Business Forum every success. Thank you. I thank His Excellency President Xi Jinping for that important speech. In his speech, President Xi analyzed the current world economic situation, took stock of the achievements of BRICS cooperation, drew up the blueprint for future BRICS cooperation, and also charted the course for deepening economic cooperation among BRICS countries. His speech also boosted the confidence of the business communities of BRICS and all other countries for deepening mutually beneficial and win-win cooperation. Let us express our heartfelt thanks to His Excellency President Xi Jinping with another warm applause. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the end of the opening ceremony of the 2017 BRICS Business Forum. Thank you.
女士们、先生们，请全体起立，再次以热烈的掌声向习近平主席阁下表示衷心的感谢。Ladies and gentlemen, please rise and give a warm round of applause to President Xi Jinping for his time.
So that's the opening of the BRICS Business Forum. President Xi Jinping talked to the Business Forum attendees, including Brazilian President Michel Temer and South African President Jacob Zuma, and 630 businesses from 25 countries, including 80 Fortune 500 companies. He explained the path of the BRIC nations over the past decade and also outlined the vision for the next 10 years. For some analysis on President Xi's keynote speech, let's turn to our studio guests. So, John,
yes,
President Xi admitted there are some setbacks for BRIC nations over the past few years, economic slowdown for some of the emerging economies, but still he's optimistic about the road ahead.
Well, yeah, of course. The bulk of the messages are, really nothing new. But I think I'm most impressed by 3 things he said. First of all, he mentioned peaceful development numerous times. I can't even, counting how many times he mentioned this. This has to be considered in the context that originally BRICS is supposed to be an economic cooperation forum, economic thing. But now it has more broadened to cover the political area in terms of...
Why do you think he stressed security this time around?
This is the second thing I want to bring up is that he mentioned also Belt and Road Initiative. He mentioned that 29 countries attending the summit in Beijing, but we have to keep in mind that one country is absent at that meeting, right? And also, we have to keep in mind the recent Dokram transgression. I want to talk about this, but I think it is very important.